Good evening and welcome. My name is Lynn Griffith-Jones, and I am Superintendent of Student Achievement with Thames Valley District School Board. Co-chairing this evening's meeting with me is Jeff Boat, Superintendent of Facility Services and Capital Planning. Also in attendance are Superintendents of Student Achievement, Sheila Builder and Paul Sador. We really appreciate you joining us this evening. We recognize there are many competing issues at your plate these days, and we are glad that you're here this evening. Also joining us this evening are Eric Miles and Chris Harris from our planning team, as well as Josh Valenti and Jack Amendolia of Watson Associates, who are assisting us with this review. Each of the schools involved in this part of the review have Attendance Area Review Committee members representing their respective school communities, and we thank you for putting your names forward to take on this very important task. Welcome to everyone who is here this evening, and again, thank you for volunteering for participating in this important process. Superintendent Vogt will now review the agenda for this evening.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. We are here today to present an initial attendance area review report for several schools in and around the downtown of London. The report contemplates potential attendance area boundary changes. This meeting is the first step in the public consultation process for this review and is intended to provide school communities with information regarding what is being considered and how to provide the board with feedback, comments, and suggestions. So tonight we'll go through some background information. We'll provide you an overview of the attendance area review process, the procedure documents, and the timelines. We will review the roles and responsibility of the attendance area review committee members. We'll go through a presentation of the initial attendance area review report. We'll host a question and answer session after the report, and then we will wrap up things for the evening. So Chris from our planning team will be monitoring the chat box during the discussion today. As some of the questions may be answered through the course of the presentation, we'll answer questions from the members during the Q&A portion of the meeting. We also encourage you to ask questions and seek clarification verbally during that portion of the agenda. And so at this point, I'm going to pass the presentation over to Eric.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Vogt. So before I get into the attendance area review procedure and the role of attendance area review committee members, I'm just going to provide some context or background information about how we arrived at the current point in the process. So on June 23rd, 2020, trustees passed a motion requesting that the student distribution imbalance across the City of London be addressed pending the results of the 2019-2020 round of the Capital Priorities Program. This is the program by which the province provides funding for any major new capital works such as new schools or additions. The overarching feedback from the ministry as part of that round of the Capital Priorities Program was that TVDSB should improve facility utilization within the City of London before seeking capital grants for new schools and additions. Subsequent to those discussions with the ministry, administration has been formulating potential boundary changes for the board's consideration for both elementary and secondary schools across the city. The initial attendance area review report for elementary schools in London was set to be presented to the Board of Trustees on November 23rd, 2021. That evening, trustees passed a motion to defer consideration of the London Elementary Panel initial attendance area review report until additional information was made available from the Ministry of Education regarding its decisions related to last year's round of the Capital Priorities Program. Trustees also requested that administration provide information about various French immersion schools in London. So on January 25th, a new report was presented to trustees that incorporated the Ministry of Education's most recent capital approvals in London. At that meeting, trustees also received additional information about the board's French immersion boundaries in central London. Trustees formally initiated an attendance area review at the January 25th meeting. The review is split up into 5 geographic areas of the city, and one such focus area includes downtown London. More specifically, that includes St. George's, Aberdeen, and Old North Public Schools. So before we outline the proposed boundary changes under consideration, we're just going to start by giving an overview of the attendance area review process and the role of the attendance area review committee members. So an attendance area review is a process by which school boards change boundaries to optimize enrollment and balance attendance across specific geographic areas. This is a process that is generally needed because of growing or declining enrollment and is done to ensure optimal learning environments can continue to be offered to our students. TVDSB has a procedure for attendance area reviews, which is available on the website for this review, which can be found at the following URL: www.tvdsb.ca/LAAR. This website has many other helpful resources, including a Q&A page and interactive maps that show the proposed boundary changes for each school. Prior to considering an attendance area review, the Board of Trustees receives an initial attendance area review report from administration that details current and potential attendance areas, current enrollment and accommodations, enrollment projections for the area, current and proposed residential development and community trends, as well as a potential timeline for implementation. If trustees initiate the AAR process, formal public consultation is then undertaken through the formation of an attendance area review committee and school-level subcommittees. Their feedback and input is considered by the trustees throughout the decision-making process. As mentioned, the initial attendance area review report for this review was presented to trustees on January 25th. At this meeting, administration received direction to proceed with obtaining public feedback regarding the options presented in the report. Since the board meeting in January, volunteers to sit on the attendance area review committee have been recruited with the help of principals of schools involved in the review. We'd like to thank you again for volunteering to help and lead this important process. Following this evening's attendance area review committee meeting, attendance area review committee members for each school will be asked to host virtual school-level meetings in order to obtain feedback from each school community regarding the boundary changes under consideration. The attendance area review committee members of each school subcommittee will need to designate a chair and a secretary for their school-level meetings in order to help manage the discussion and record feedback. Following the receipt of public feedback from the school communities, administration will review the comments provided and prepare a final attendance area review report. As part of the attendance area review process, members of the public are also provided with the opportunity to make delegations to the Board of Trustees regarding the final report and its recommendations. This is then followed by a decision by trustees at a subsequent board meeting. Once a decision is made, administration will work to implement the boundary changes in accordance with the timeline determined by trustees. So this slide provides an overview of the timeline for this particular attendance area review, that being the downtown review, and lays out some of the milestones related to the process described on the previous slide. So following this evening's meeting, it is expected that the virtual school-level attendance area review committee subcommittee meetings will be held in March and April to obtain public feedback. In accordance with the attendance area review procedure, there are a number of important dates specifically related to the public consultation portion of this process. They are shown on this slide here, but just to give a general rundown, April 22nd is the deadline for subcommittees to request any additional information that their school communities may require to supplement the information contained in the initial attendance area review report. This information is intended to assist school communities with evaluating the options under consideration. Administration will also be distributing any additional material that is requested to all school communities involved in the review. May 6th is the last date on which school-level subcommittee meetings may be held. Finally, on May 20th is the deadline for subcommittees to submit reports on their school community's input. Administration will be reviewing the public feedback received through the school community reports and assembling a final attendance area review report for trustees' consideration. Presentation of the final report, public delegations, and a trustee decision are expected to occur in June of this year. As mentioned, the attendance area review committee is made up of volunteers from each school that is involved in the attendance area review process. This includes parents and guardians, chair of the school council, and the chair of the Home and School Association if one exists. Attendance area review committee members are vital to the success of the attendance area review process and are critical for obtaining feedback regarding the boundary changes under consideration for the school communities. In addition to running their respective school-level subcommittee meetings, attendance area review committee members are responsible for producing a subcommittee report that documents the public feedback from the school community. Thames Valley administration staff will be providing attendance area review committee members with template documents in order to assist subcommittees with running their meetings. So these items include agenda and minute-taking documents as well as subcommittee report templates. Presentation slides that summarize the changes under consideration will also be provided to subcommittees for inclusion in each respective presentation to school communities. Subcommittees are welcome to supplement the presentation material provided with additional information as they see fit. Thames Valley District School Board staff will act as a resource following the meetings if any questions arise or additional information is required by the school communities in order to evaluate the changes under consideration. So that concludes my portion of the presentation. I'm now going to hand it over to Josh Valenti, who will provide an overview of the proposed boundary changes for this focus area of the review.
Thanks, Eric, and good evening, everybody. So downtown London is experiencing enrollment growth and pressure at some of its schools. In particular, St. George's Public School has been experiencing increases in enrollment, and with the additional residential growth in that area, these trends are expected to continue. Utilization rates at the school are projected to reach close to 150% by 2025. Administration is proposing a two-phase solution to deal with the existing and future pressures at this facility. In the shorter term, surplus space at Aberdeen Public School can be utilized to alleviate some of the pressure at St. George's. However, enrollment increases are expected to be sustained and will require additional relief in the mid to longer term. The second phase of this scenario proposes to utilize Old North, former Ryerson Public School, once the board's new Northwest London School is open. And once that Northwest School is open, current enrollment that's holding at Old North will be relocated to the new Northwest London School, resulting in surplus spaces that can be used to accommodate additional enrollment from St. George's at Old North. And the next few slides will outline those proposed areas of change in more detail. So starting with phase one and utilizing the available space at Aberdeen, administration is proposing adjusting the southern boundary of St. George's and assigning those students south of Dufferin Street to Aberdeen Public School located to the south. This change involves approximately 90 students, along with some future residential growth in that area. Currently, Aberdeen's utilization is below 70%, and this change would bring it to just above 80%, while also bringing the utilization of St. George's from 133% down to 114%, as we'll see in the next slide. Another thing to note is that the proposed change helps St. George's out in the short term, but by 2028, utilization returns to over 140%. So we're looking at the next slide here. We can see the area of change that we're looking at. So currently we have the existing boundaries highlighted as those red lines, and then the area to the north of that red line in purple, but south of Dufferin is the area of St. George's that we would be assigning to Aberdeen Public School. And this goes from Richmond on the west all the way over to Adelaide on the east. So if we look at the next slide here, we can see, as we previously mentioned, the slides outlines the status quo scenario on the top and compares that to the proposed solution on the bottom. As shown, Aberdeen's utilization goes from 66% to 82% in 2023 and up to 91% over the longer period, while St. George's sees an immediate impact as well, but over the long term, utilization jumps back up to over 140%. Another key thing to mention here is the number of students that would be accommodated through temporary spaces, where this proposed solution would remove the need for about 3 portables at St. George's in the short term. So now we need to look at and how to accommodate the enrollment over that longer period, which brings us into phase two. And if we look at the next slide, we're looking at the area of in the north of St. George's current attendance boundary. As we saw in the previous slide, the phase one works well for the short term, but enrollment pressures return at St. George's of the longer term, which brings us into the second phase approach, allowing for longer term and sustainable enrollments and utilizations at St. George's and its neighboring schools. Old North currently is a holding school for students located in Northwest London from Sir Arthur Currie, and there is currently approval for a new Northwest London elementary school. Once that school opens up, students that are currently being held at Old North will be returned to their new home school, leaving Old North with surplus space. Once that surplus space becomes available, the proposed option is to assign all the students residing west of Richmond Street and all the students residing north of St. James Street that attend St. George's to Old North. This represents the relocation of approximately 120 students to be accommodated at Old North. And if we flip to the next slide, we can see a zoomed in map. And as we see on this map, similar to the last one, the red lines are the existing attendance boundaries, And the area in green that falls south of that line is the proposed area to be relocated to Old North from St. George's. And that's from I believe from Richmond again to Adelaide on the east. So how does this work out in the long term? If we jump to the next slide here, it alleviates the enrollment pressures at St. George's, bringing the utilization down from 140% to 105%, while bringing Old North almost to full capacity at 96%. And again, this is assuming that those two holding zones that are currently accommodated at Old North are returned to the new Northwest London School upon opening. So those are the two-phase approach for this area of downtown London. And now I'd like to flip it back over to Eric and the team for some Q&A.
Thanks, Josh. Chris, do we have any questions showing up in the chat?
At the moment, I don't see any questions. If you do have a question, either raise your hand or type it into the chat box, and I will try to get your question in the order it is received. Okay, here we got a question from Angela. Where and how are the growth projections calculated?
Thanks for the question. Josh, do you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Jeff. So we actually look at projections in a two-phase approach. We look at the existing communities, and then we also, as one part, and then we also look at the growth segment as a second part and layer that on top. So the existing community, in a quick summary, is we look at historical trends, census data, age cohorts, and how things have played out in the last few years. And then we project that forward. And then on step two is we look at the growth projections. And in this case, these projections were provided through the City of London, which we have utilized. And then we use custom census data, pupil generation factor, how many pupils are coming out of each new household. And we apply those to the growth numbers provided through the city, which gives us a student yield. We combine those two, and that's kind of how our projections are created in a quick and dirty explanation.
Okay, next question is from Bethany. Hi there. Question for Aberdeen Public School. Is there any organic growth that is projected for this area?
Thanks for the question, Bethany. I think in general, we expect to see some growth out of the Aberdeen community, certainly, but I don't know, Josh, if you want to answer that question more specifically, or we can get back to Bethany in the Q&A portion through the website with more specifics, sorry.
Yeah, I don't have exact numbers on hand right now, so if we can get back to Bethany, that'd be great. Again, there is that growth happening through the existing community and family turnovers and all that, so that's all kind of incorporated, but for exact growth numbers, we can provide that to you as well.
Okay, next question is from Ted. Will students be given the option to be grandfathered to stay at the current school following the boundary changes? Obviously provide their own transportation.
Thanks, Ted. I'll take that one myself. So we're actually now referring to this as legacy agreements, but certainly this is the type of feedback that should get incorporated within the final report that the school community presents, if the school community feels this is something important for the trustees to consider.
Just wanted to let you know that if there are any questions that are asked this evening and we are going to go back and get answers for you, those answers will be posted on the website. Not seeing any further questions or any hands raised. Certainly, if after this evening, oh, there we go. Here's another question.
Okay, this is a follow-up from Ted. Thank you. I know that has been an option in the past. Given the disruption of COVID for the kids, I think it is an important option for them to remain with their cohort if they choose. So I believe that's more of a comment than a question.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. And again, this is the type of feedback that if it's important to the school community, and it sounds like it will be, this is the type of information that should make the final report, but very much appreciate the comment.
Any other questions?
So certainly recognize that if you go away this evening and think of other questions to ask, by all means, please reach out and submit your questions on the website, which is again www.tvdsb.ca/LAAR. And we'd also suggest and recommend that when you go onto the website, scroll down to the very bottom of it and you can subscribe to the website, and that'll give you updated information as the questions are posted going forward. So want to thank everyone for attending this evening and for your questions. The next step in the attendance area review process is the holding of school level Attendance Area Review Committee subcommittee meetings for the purpose of gathering public feedback regarding the boundary changes under consideration. The Thames Valley Administrative Team will be providing the Attendance Area Review Committee members with a slide deck to include as part of their respective school level meetings, as well as template documents for meetings, agendas, minutes, and a subcommittee report regarding the school community's input. We really do appreciate you being here this evening and taking the time to join us this evening for this very important initiative. Good night.